"Get her out of here. She's just a construction worker." The executive sneered as Amara Johnson pulled the billionaire from the wreckage. But Ethan Carter couldn't look away. Something in her fearless eyes awakened a part of him he thought had died in the boardroom. A part that would make him risk his empire, his reputation, and everything he'd built to prove that love doesn't recognize class barriers. Welcome to Story by TJ, where we bring you real stories about real people facing impossible choices. I'm so glad you're here with us today. Before we dive into this incredible story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Dallas skyline as Ethan Carter's silver Aston Martin weaved through traffic at precisely 8 miles above the speed limit. His phone buzzed incessantly on the dashboard, 17 missed calls from his VP of operations, each one screaming the same message. The Riverside Tower project was behind schedule, and investors were getting nervous. Ethan's jaw tightened as he pressed harder on the accelerator. At 34, he'd built Carter Construction and Tech from a struggling startup into a billion-dollar empire, and he hadn't done it by accepting excuses. The high-rise construction site was only 6 blocks away now, and heads were going to roll. "Mr. Carter, the structural engineer is saying we need another week." His assistant's voice crackled through the Bluetooth speaker. "Tell him he has 3 days." Ethan cut her off, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "And if he can't?" The brake pedal went soft under his foot. Ethan's heart lurched as he pumped the brakes again. Nothing. The car was still accelerating, and the intersection ahead was packed with morning commuters. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as he yanked the emergency brake, but the cable snapped with a sickening pop. "No, no, no." Ethan swerved right, narrowly missing a school bus, and aimed for what looked like the least deadly option: the construction site's entrance barrier. The impact threw him forward against the seatbelt. Metal screamed against metal as the car plowed through the wooden barrier and skidded across gravel, finally slamming into a tower of scaffolding pipes at the site's edge. The world spun. Ethan's vision blurred. Above him, the scaffolding groaned ominously, bolts popping loose like gunshots. Then everything tilted. A massive section of metal framework began to collapse directly toward his crumpled car. Through the shattered windshield, Ethan saw it falling, tons of steel and wood planking descending in slow motion. He tried to move, but his leg was pinned between the crushed dashboard and the seat. This was it. This was how Ethan Carter, the man who'd conquered every business battlefield, would die, trapped and helpless. The scaffolding's shadow engulfed him as he squeezed his eyes shut. "Move! Everybody back!" The command cut through the chaos like a blade. Ethan's eyes snapped open to see a figure in a yellow hard hat sprinting toward his car. Not away from it, but toward the falling death trap above. Amara Johnson had been inspecting foundation work on the north end of the site when she heard the crash. Years of construction experience had taught her to assess danger in milliseconds, and what she saw made her blood run cold. A luxury car wedged under Section 7 scaffolding, a man trapped inside, and maybe 8 seconds before the whole structure came down. Most people froze in emergencies. Amara ran toward them. "Get the support chains!" she screamed at her crew while yanking a heavy-duty jack from the nearby equipment shed. Her boots pounded across the gravel. 6 seconds. She reached the car and assessed the angle of collapse. If she could brace the main vertical support, she might buy enough time. For seconds, Amara jammed the hydraulic jack under the scaffolding's primary beam and started pumping with every ounce of strength in her 5'7" frame. The metal groaned but held. 3 seconds. She grabbed her bolt cutters and attacked the car door's crushed frame, peeling it back like a tin can. "Can you move?" she shouted at the stunned man inside. Ethan stared at her like she'd materialized from thin air. "My leg, it's stuck." "Then we unstick it." Amara wedged her crowbar into the dashboard's twisted metal and leveraged her entire body weight against it. 2 seconds. The dashboard shifted an inch. Another heave. 2 more inches. "Pull yourself out. Now!" The scaffolding's moan became a shriek. Ethan grabbed the door frame and dragged himself through the opening, just as Amara seized his arm and yanked him clear. They hit the ground rolling as 3 tons of metal, and would crash down exactly where his car had been. The impact sending a mushroom cloud of dust across the entire site. Silence fell like a curtain. Amara lay on her back, chest heaving, hard hat askew, covered in dust and grease. Beside her, Ethan Carter, though she didn't know his name yet, was doing the same, his expensive suit now indistinguishable from construction site debris. "You," he gasped, turning his head to look at her. "You just saved your life," Amara finished, sitting up and dusting off her work gloves. "Yeah, well, somebody had to. You picked a hell of a place to park." Ethan struggled to his feet, his designer shoes crunching on broken glass. His entire body trembled with adrenaline, but he forced himself to stand straight. Carter men didn't show weakness. Still, his voice shook slightly when he spoke. "I don't know how to thank you. You didn't have to risk your life." Amara stood and brushed debris from her worn jeans, eyeing him with a mixture of concern and wariness. Now that the crisis had passed, she could see him clearly. Mid-30s, expensive watch, tailored suit torn at the shoulder. Probably some corporate investor who'd gotten lost on his way to the site office. "Part of the job," she said simply, retrieving her hard hat. "You hurt anywhere? Should I call an ambulance?" "I'm fine. Thanks to you." Ethan extended his hand. "Ethan Carter." Amara's hand froze halfway to his. "Wait, Ethan Carter? As in Carter Construction? As in, you own this entire site?" "Guilty." A small smile played at his lips despite the circumstances. "And you are?" "Amara Johnson, Level 3 ironworker." She shook his hand firmly, noting how soft his palm felt compared to her calloused grip. "And before you ask, yes, that was Section 7 scaffolding that almost killed you. I filed a report 3 days ago saying those bolts needed replacement. Someone in your office marked it low priority." The smile vanished from Ethan's face. "What? Check your safety reports, Mr. Carter." Amara's tone was professional, but her eyes held a challenge. "We've been flagging issues for weeks. Maybe if people at the top paid more attention to the people actually building their towers, accidents like this wouldn't happen." Silence stretched between them. Ethan's jaw worked as he processed her words, and the uncomfortable truth in them. Around them, construction workers had begun approaching cautiously, and Ethan could hear sirens in the distance. His assistant would be here soon, along with lawyers, insurance adjusters, and media vultures. But right now, all he could focus on was this woman who'd risked everything to save him, and was now calling him out with the kind of honesty his boardroom yes-men would never dare. "You're absolutely right," he said finally, "and I'm going to fix it, starting with reading every safety report personally. You have my word." Amara studied his face, searching for the usual corporate BS. Instead, she saw something that surprised her. Sincerity mixed with genuine shame. Maybe billionaires were capable of learning after all. "We'll see," she said, then grabbed her tool belt. "Now if you'll excuse me, Mr. Carter. I've got a site to secure before OSHA shows up and shuts us down." She turned to leave, but Ethan's voice stopped her. "Wait. Let me at least get your contact information. I'd like to thank you properly." Amara glanced back, her expression unreadable. "You want to thank me? Fix the safety violations, pay your workers fairly, and stop cutting corners to impress your investors. That'll be thanks enough." With that, she walked away, leaving Ethan standing in the wreckage, watching her disappear into the crowd of workers, and feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Intrigued. 5 days after the accident, Amara stood in the marble lobby of Carter Tower, feeling completely out of place. Her best jeans and a clean flannel shirt seemed laughable next to the designer suits flowing past her. The receptionist had looked her up and down twice before finally confirming her appointment. "Ms. Johnson? Mr. Carter will see you now. 42nd floor." Amara stepped into the glass elevator, watching the city shrink beneath her. She tried to decline this meeting 3 times, but Ethan Carter was apparently as persistent as he was wealthy. His assistant had called daily, each message the same. "Mr. Carter insists on thanking you properly." The elevator doors opened to reveal a sprawling office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Dallas. Ethan stood by his desk, looking far more composed than the last time she'd seen him, covered in dust and nearly crushed by scaffolding. Amara, thank you for coming. His smile was warm but cautious. Please sit. I'd rather stand, Mr. Carter. I've got a shift starting in 2 hours. Ethan, please. He gestured to a leather chair that probably cost more than her monthly rent. And I promise this won't take long. I wanted to thank you personally and— You already thanked me at the site, Amara interrupted. Look, I appreciate the gesture, but I don't need a reward for doing what anyone should have done. It's not a reward. It's recognition. Ethan pulled out an envelope. A $50,000 bonus and a promotion to site supervisor. You clearly have leadership skills that— Stop! Amara's voice was sharp. You think you can just throw money at this? I don't want your guilt check, Mr. Carter. I want you to actually fix the problems I told you about. Ethan's expression hardened. I have fixed them. Every safety violation has been addressed. And I've implemented new protocols across all sites. In 5 days? Impressive. Her tone dripped with skepticism. Let me guess, you had a meeting, signed some papers, and declared the problem solved. Did you actually visit the sites? Talk to the workers? Or did you just shuffle money around until the liability disappeared? That's not fair. Fair. Amara stepped closer, her eyes blazing. You know what's not fair? Jorge Martinez working 60-hour weeks to support his 3 kids while you worry about which sports car to drive. Fair is Maria Chun, who's been asking for proper safety harnesses for 6 months. Fair is— I get it. Ethan cut her off, his own frustration rising. You think I'm some disconnected billionaire who doesn't care about his workers. But you don't know anything about how I built this company or what I've sacrificed to. Sacrificed? Amara laughed bitterly. Forgive me if I don't cry for the man who owns 3 penthouses. They stood facing each other, both breathing hard, the tension crackling between them like electricity. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, trying to regain composure. Why did you come here if you hate me so much? Amara paused. That was a fair question. Because your assistant called 6 times. Because I wanted to look you in the eye and tell you that saving your life doesn't mean I respect how you run your business. And because— She hesitated. Because part of me wanted to see if you'd actually follow through on fixing things. And do you? See it. I see a man trying to buy his way out of guilt. Whether that translates to real change. Time will tell. Ethan studied her for a long moment, then made a decision that surprised even himself. Come with me tomorrow. What? To the Riverside site. Spend the day showing me what I'm missing. If I'm as disconnected as you say, prove it. Show me your world. Ethan arrived at the construction site at 6:47 a.m. wearing brand new work boots that screamed, never been used, and jeans that still had creases from the store. Amara spotted him from the scaffolding and had to suppress a smile. Nice boots, boss man, called out Tommy, one of the veteran welders. You get those at the country club gift shop? Laughter rippled through the crew. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he nodded good-naturedly. Laugh it up. I'm here to learn. Amara climbed down and tossed him a hard hat and tool belt. Rule 1. If you can't carry your weight, you don't belong here. Rule 2. Everyone pulls their own load, billionaire or not. Rule 3. You do exactly what I say when I say it. Lives depend on it. Understood. Understood. Good. Grab that pallet of rebar and help move it to section 3. The pallet weighed at least 200 pounds. Ethan grabbed one end while Tommy took the other, and they began hauling it across the uneven ground. Within 30 seconds, Ethan's shoulders burned. Within 2 minutes, sweat poured down his face. By the time they reached section 3, his designer jeans were covered in rust and dirt. Break time already? Amara asked sweetly. We've got 14 more pallets to move. Ethan's response was cut off by his gasping for breath. The crew chuckled, but several offered water bottles. As the morning progressed, Ethan learned to mix concrete, secure safety lines, and operate a pneumatic drill. He dropped a wrench on his foot, nearly fell off a ladder, and discovered muscles he didn't know existed. But he also learned something else. He learned that Maria Chun was studying engineering at night school while working 10-hour days. That Jorge Martinez sent half his paycheck to his mother in Mexico for her medical bills. That Tommy had served 2 tours in Afghanistan and found peace in the precision of welding. That Amara herself was supporting 2 younger brothers through college after their parents died in a car accident 5 years ago. During lunch break, Ethan sat on a concrete barrier, eating a sandwich Amara had brought from home. Nothing like the catered meals in his office, but somehow better. "You're tougher than you look," Amara admitted, sitting beside him. "Most corporate types would have quit after the first pallet. Most construction workers would have let me fall off that ladder," Ethan countered. "But Marcus caught me. That's what crews do. We watch out for each other." She paused. "It's not just about the paycheck, Mr. Carter. It's about respect. About being seen as people, not line items on a budget report." Ethan nodded slowly, watching the workers around him joke and collaborate. "I started this company working sites just like this one. I welded steel for 3 years before I could afford business school. Somewhere along the way, I forgot what that felt like." Amara turned to look at him, surprised. "You worked construction? Every day for 3 years. My father died when I was 19, left us with nothing but debt. Construction paid for my degree." He flexed his soft hands ruefully. "I guess I've gone soft since then." For the first time, Amara saw past the expensive clothes and corporate polish. She saw someone who understood her world because he'd lived it, even if he'd forgotten. "Maybe you're not completely hopeless after all," she said, the ghost of a smile playing at her lips. Neither Ethan nor Amara noticed Tommy's daughter snapping photos throughout the day. By 8 p.m., those photos were everywhere. At Dallas T. Spiller. Breaking. Billionaire Ethan Carter spotted working construction site with the woman who saved his life. Smiling face with hard eyes, #relationship goals, #real love. At Pop Culture Daily. From boardroom to building site. Tech mogul Ethan Carter gets hands dirty alongside hero construction worker Amara Johnson. Thread below thread. The photos showed Ethan covered in sweat and dust, laughing with construction workers. Amara guiding his hands on a drill. The two of them sitting side by side during lunch, deep in conversation. Within hours, the images had been shared over 50,000 times. Amara discovered the viral storm when her phone exploded with notifications. Her Instagram, which normally had 200 followers, suddenly had 15,000. Her private Facebook was flooded with friend requests. Her younger brother called, laughing hysterically. "Sis, you're famous. #Construction Cinderella is trending." "I'm what?" Amara scrolled through Twitter with growing horror. Strangers were dissecting her life, creating shipping names, #Amara was apparently winning, and speculating about a romance that didn't exist. Some comments were sweet, celebrating her heroism and their apparent connection. Others were cruel, calling her a gold digger or questioning what a billionaire could possibly see in a construction worker. Her phone rang. "Ethan, have you seen?" "Yes." Amara cut him off, her voice tight. "I've seen it all. The photos, the comments, the hashtags. This is exactly what I didn't want."
Amara, I'm sorry.
"I had no idea anyone was taking pictures. My PR team is working on." "Your PR team?" "Ethan, this isn't some corporate crisis to manage. This is my life. My privacy. I'm not some feel-good story for people's entertainment. I know that. But maybe what? Maybe I should enjoy my 15 minutes of fame? Maybe I should embrace being called Construction Cinderella by people who wouldn't last 5 minutes doing my job." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Ethan spoke quietly. "I spent today in your world, and I have nothing but respect for it. For you. But you're right. I can't control how others see it. I'm sorry this happened." Amara felt her anger deflate slightly. "It's not your fault. I need some space to think." She hung up before he could respond, staring at her phone as notifications continued to flood in. Tomorrow, she'd have to face her crew, her community, and the whole world's unsolicited opinions about her life. All because she'd saved a man's life. The Carter construction boardroom fell silent as Ethan finished his presentation on the new safety protocols. 12 pairs of eyes stared at him, some skeptical, others openly hostile. Let me get this straight. Richard Blackwood, the company's largest investor, leaned back in his leather chair. You want to spend an additional $12 million annually on safety equipment and training because a construction worker told you to? Because it's the right thing to do? Ethan corrected, his voice steady despite the tension coiling in his chest. The accident last week exposed serious gaps in our protocols. Gaps that could cost lives, and cost us lawsuits that would dwarf $12 million. Or, Blackwood continued, his tone dripping with condescension. This sudden concern for worker welfare has nothing to do with safety and everything to do with impressing your little rescue hero. What's trending these days? Hashtag Construction Cinderella? Snickers rippled around the table. Ethan's hands clenched into fists beneath the table, but his expression remained neutral. My personal life is irrelevant to this discussion. Is it though? Miranda Chin, the CFO, chimed in. Her voice was softer than Blackwood's but no less cutting. Ethan, we've all seen the photos. The media is having a field day with your romance. Meanwhile, our competitors are circling, and shareholders are nervous. This isn't the time for, how shall I put it, slumming for good PR. Careful, Miranda. Ethan's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. You're talking about a woman who saved my life. A woman with more integrity than anyone in this room. A woman from the other side of the tracks, Blackwood interjected. Come on, Carter. We all know how this plays out. You have your little working-class fantasy, get it out of your system, and then marry someone appropriate. Someone from our world. Sarah Mitchell is still available, I hear. Sarah, his ex-fiancée, the perfectly polished socialite who'd left him 2 years ago because he worked too much. The woman his mother still called, the one who got away. This meeting is about safety protocols, not my love life, Ethan said firmly. Now, unless someone has legitimate concerns about the proposed changes, we're implementing them across all sites starting Monday. I have a legitimate concern. Blackwood stood, his face flushed. You're letting emotion cloud your judgment. Ever since that accident, you've been different. Distracted. Visiting construction sites, taking photos with workers like you're running for office. That's not the Ethan Carter who built this company. Maybe that Ethan Carter needed to change. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Blackwood's eyes narrowed. Change too much and you might find yourself outvoted at the next board meeting. Remember, I control 30% of this company's shares. I made you Carter. I can unmake you just as easily. After the meeting ended and the boardroom emptied, Ethan stood alone by the window, looking out at the Dallas skyline. His reflection stared back at him. Tailored suit, perfect hair, the image of success. But behind that reflection, he saw something else. Someone else. He saw Amara's fearless eyes as she'd pulled him from the wreckage. Her calloused hands gripping that crowbar. Her fierce pride when she'd refused his money. Her smile during lunch at the construction site. Rare and genuine. Nothing like the calculated expressions he encountered daily in his world. What am I doing? He whispered to his reflection. But he already knew the answer. He was falling for a woman who challenged everything about his life. A woman who made him want to be better. A woman his world would never accept. And that scared him more than any collapsing scaffolding ever could. Amara's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. Same as always. But nothing else about her life felt the same anymore. Her phone showed 247 new Instagram followers overnight. Her younger brother Marcus had texted at midnight. Sis, TMZ is calling you the blue-collar Cinderella. This is insane. Her best friend Keisha had sent a screenshot of a blog post titled 10 Reasons Why Ethan and Amara's Love Story Restores Our Faith in Humanity. There was no love story. There was barely a friendship. Yet the world had decided otherwise. Amara dragged herself out of bed, exhausted despite 8 hours of sleep. The stress of sudden fame pressed down on her shoulders like wet concrete. She'd spent the previous evening fielding calls from her family, her crew, and even a reporter who'd somehow gotten her number. Morning superstar. Her younger brother Jordan called from the kitchen. At 19, he found the whole situation hilarious. Want me to make you a special breakfast? Maybe some champagne and caviar? That's what billionaires eat, right? Jordan, it's too early for your jokes. Come on, sis. This is actually pretty cool. That guy likes you. Rich, handsome, and he's not afraid of real work. I saw those photos. He looked like he was actually trying. Amara poured coffee with shaking hands. It doesn't matter if he was trying. Our worlds are completely different. You think his fancy friends will ever accept someone like me? You think I want photographers following me to the grocery store? I think you're scared, Jordan said gently. And I get it. But I also see how you talk about him. You're interested, even if you don't want to admit it. I'm not. Amara. Marcus emerged from the hallway, still in his pajamas, his laptop open. You need to see this. He turned the screen toward her. A gossip website displayed a photo of Ethan at some charity gala 3 months ago. A beautiful woman in a designer gown on his arm. The headline read, "Is construction romance just PR?" Ethan Carter's ex-fiancée Sarah Mitchell says he'll come back to reality soon. Amara's stomach twisted as she read the quote. Ethan's always had a savior complex. He'll realize soon enough that real relationships require more than good intentions. We're from the same world. She's not. See, Amara said, pushing the laptop away. That's his reality. I'm just a temporary detour. But even as she said it, she remembered the look in Ethan's eyes during lunch at the construction site. The way he'd listened to every worker's story. How his hands had trembled slightly when he'd called to apologize about the photos. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Amara, it's Ethan. I got your number from the site records. Sorry for the intrusion. I know you need space, but I wanted you to know that what happened in the boardroom today, what's being said in the media, none of it changes what I learned from you. You made me see my company differently. You made me see myself differently. Whatever happens next, thank you for that. Amara stared at the message for a long time. Her brothers watched her face carefully. What are you going to do? Marcus asked softly. I don't know, she admitted. I honestly don't know. 3 days of silence passed before Ethan texted again. There's a park downtown. Quiet. No cameras. Can we talk? Just talk. Please. Amara almost said no. She'd spent those 3 days trying to return to normal, working her shifts, ignoring the stares from her crew, declining interview requests. But normal felt like a costume that no longer fit. She found him sitting on a bench overlooking a small lake, feeding ducks. He wore jeans and a simple t-shirt, no designer labels visible. His hair was slightly messy, and he had dark circles under his eyes that matched her own. You look terrible, she said, sitting down beside him. Right back at you. He offered a tired smile. Thank you for coming. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the ducks glide across the water. Finally, Ethan spoke. My father was a construction worker. Did I mention that? Amara shook her head. He died when I was 19. Accident on a site in Houston. Faulty equipment. Negligent contractor. They paid my mother $50,000 and made her sign an NDA. His voice was hollow. That's what his life was worth to them. $50,000 and silence. Ethan, I built this company to honor him. To prove that construction workers deserved better. Safer sites. Fair wages. Respect. He turned to look at her, his eyes raw with emotion. But somewhere along the way I became exactly what I hated. I got rich, surrounded myself with people like Blackwood, and forgot why I started. Until you reminded me. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know who I really am. Not the billionaire the media sees. Not the CEO my board wants. The real me, the kid who lost his father to corporate negligence and swore to do better. The man who's terrified that he's failing that promise every single day. You're not failing, Amara said softly. Those safety protocols you implemented, they matter. The workers see it. I see it. And what else do you see when you look at me? The question hung between them, heavy with meaning. Amara took a deep breath, deciding to match his vulnerability with her own. "I see someone who scares me," she admitted, "because you make me want things I told myself I couldn't have. A partnership with someone who respects my work. Someone who doesn't see my calloused hands as something to fix. Someone who—" She paused. "Someone who makes me feel seen." Ethan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand in his. Their fingers intertwined, his soft, hers rough with years of labor. Two different worlds connected by a simple touch. "I don't have answers," he said. "I don't know how to bridge our worlds or silence the critics or make this easy. But I know that meeting you changed something fundamental in me. And I'd like the chance to see where that leads. If you're willing." Amara looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. Vulnerable, hopeful, scared. She saw her own fears reflected back at her, but she also saw possibility. "One step at a time," she whispered. "One step at a time," he agreed. As the sun began to set over the lake, they sat together in comfortable silence, neither knowing what the future held, but both willing to find out. Around them, the city hummed with life, but in that moment, in that quiet park, they existed in a space all their own, where class barriers dissolved and two hearts tentatively reached for connection. Sarah Mitchell hadn't expected to feel anything when she saw the photos of Ethan with that construction worker. After all, she'd been the one to end their engagement 2 years ago. But jealousy was a funny thing. It didn't respect logic or past decisions. She stood in Richard Blackwood's penthouse office, champagne in hand, watching him orchestrate what he called damage control. "The reporter will run the story tomorrow," Blackwood said, reviewing documents on his tablet. "Anonymous sources claim Ms. Johnson has been asking questions about Ethan's net worth, implying she's researched his assets, his properties. It'll look like she's positioning herself for a payout." "But is any of it true?" Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure she cared about the answer. "Does it matter? Perception is reality in our world." Blackwood smiled coldly. "Ethan's distraction is costing us money and momentum. He's implementing expensive reforms and ignoring the Riverside expansion because he's too busy playing working-class hero. This ends it cleanly." Sarah swirled her champagne, watching the bubbles rise. Part of her, the part that had genuinely loved Ethan once, felt guilty. But the larger part, the part that understood how their world worked, knew Blackwood was right. Ethan was losing focus, becoming someone she didn't recognize. "What do you need from me?" "Just be seen at the club tomorrow. Look available, refined, everything she's not. Remind him of what he's throwing away." The next morning, the article appeared in Dallas's most-read business blog, Gold Digger or Gold Heart? Questions arise about construction workers' interest in Billionaire's fortune. The story was masterfully written, technically asking questions rather than making accusations, but leaving readers to draw damning conclusions. It mentioned Amara's financial struggles, her brother's college tuitions, and included anonymous witness quotes about her asking detailed questions about Ethan's businesses during their construction site day. By noon, #GoldDiggerGate was trending. Amara was on her lunch break when Keisha showed her the article. She read it twice, her hands shaking with anger. "This is insane. Those questions were about safety protocols and worker conditions, not his damn net worth." "I know that," Keisha said gently, "but they're spinning it differently. Girl, people are ruthless in the comments." Amara didn't need to read the comments to know what they said. She could imagine. Knew she was too good to be true. Obvious gold digger. "Stay in your lane." Her phone rang. "Ethan." She declined the call. Ethan called 17 times before finally sending a text. "Amara, please, none of that article is true. We both know it. Let me fix this." Amara stared at the message, anger and hurt warring inside her. The rational part of her brain knew she'd done nothing wrong. But the wounded part, the part that remembered every sideways glance from his boardroom, every whispered comment about not belonging, that part wondered if this was inevitable. She was sitting on her apartment steps when Marcus found her. "You planning to hide out here all night?" "I'm not hiding. I'm thinking." Marcus sat beside her, bumping her shoulder with his. "Thinking about what?" Whether some jealous rich people's lies define who you are. Because I already know the answer to that. It's not just the lies, Marcus. It's everything. His world will never accept me. Today it's fake articles. Tomorrow it'll be something else. There's always going to be another Sarah Mitchell or Richard Blackwood trying to push me out. So you're just going to let them win? I'm being realistic, Amara said tiredly. Maybe his ex-fiancée was right. Maybe I was just a temporary detour from his real life. Or maybe, Marcus countered, you're scared. And instead of fighting for something that could be real, you're letting fear make your decisions. Amara didn't answer because she couldn't. Her little brother was right. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan sat in his penthouse, his phone silent beside him. He tried calling, texting, even emailing. Amara had shut him out completely, and he couldn't blame her. He'd spent the day tracing the article's sources, and while he couldn't prove it definitively, all signs pointed to Blackwood. The anonymous witnesses quoted sections of a private board meeting almost verbatim. The timing was too perfect, too calculated. His phone buzzed. Finally. But it wasn't Amara, it was his mother. Ethan, darling, I saw the news. That poor girl. But perhaps it's a blessing in disguise. Sarah called me today. She's concerned about you. Mom, not now. I'm just saying there's a reason people marry within their circle. It's not about being cruel. It's about compatibility. Shared experiences. Understanding the pressures of wealth. Amara understands pressure better than anyone I know, Ethan said sharply. She works harder in a day than most people in my circle work in a month. I'm sure she's very nice, dear. But nice isn't enough for the life you lead. After hanging up, Ethan walked to his window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Amara was pulling away from him. His world was closing ranks, pushing her out, and he felt powerless to stop it, unless he was willing to fight. The question was she? The call came at 2:47 p.m. Ethan was in a meeting when his assistant burst through the door, her face pale. Sir, there's been an accident at the Riverside site. They're saying it's Amara. Ethan's world tilted. What happened? A cable snapped during a steel beam placement. She was in the fall zone. They've called an ambulance. He didn't remember leaving the building or driving to the site. One moment he was in his office, the next he was running across gravel toward a cluster of workers surrounding a figure on the ground. Move! Let me through! Amara lay on her side, conscious but clearly in pain. Her hard hat was cracked, and she was holding her left arm at an odd angle. Blood seeped through a tear in her work shirt. Hey, boss man, she said weakly, attempting a smile. Fancy seeing you here. Don't talk. Don't move. Ethan knelt beside her, his hands hovering uselessly. He wanted to touch her, to hold her, but he was terrified of making things worse. The ambulance is coming. I'm okay. Just some bruises and maybe a broken arm. Marcus pushed me. Took most of the impact himself. She gestured with her good arm to where Marcus sat nearby, also being tended to by EMTs. You could have died. Ethan's voice cracked. You could have. But I didn't. Amara reached up with her good hand and touched his face.
Ethan, I'm okay.
He grasped her hand like a lifeline, not caring that his expensive suit was getting covered in dust and blood. Around them, workers discreetly turned away, giving them a moment of privacy. I'm sorry, he whispered. For the article, for my world, for everything that's hurt you. I should have protected you better. You can't protect me from everything, Amara said softly. But you showed up. That matters. The ambulance arrived, and as EMTs loaded Amara onto a stretcher, Ethan climbed in beside her without asking permission. She didn't protest. Instead, she kept her good hand wrapped around his, holding on tight. In that ambulance, with sirens wailing and medical equipment beeping, something shifted between them. The walls Amara had built over the past few days crumbled. The doubts plaguing Ethan dissolved. They'd face his world together or not at all. I'm not letting you go, he said as the ambulance raced toward the hospital. Good, she replied, squeezing his hand. Because I'm not letting you go either. 3 days after the accident, Ethan stood outside Amara's modest apartment in East Dallas, holding flowers he'd bought from a street vendor instead of an expensive florist. Her arm was in a cast, and she'd been discharged from the hospital with strict orders to rest for a week. He knocked, his heart pounding harder than it had in any boardroom negotiation. Jordan opened the door, gave Ethan a long, evaluating look, then called over his shoulder, "Sis, your billionaire's here." "Jordan." Amara's embarrassed voice came from inside. "Let him in, you brat." The apartment was small but warm, family photos covering the walls, mismatched furniture that looked comfortable rather than expensive, and the smell of home-cooked food wafting from the kitchen. It was more inviting than Ethan's sterile penthouse had ever been. Amara sat on the couch, her casted arm resting on a pillow. She wore sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. Ethan had never seen her look more beautiful. "Hey," she said softly. "You didn't have to come." "Yes, I did." He handed her the flowers, suddenly feeling foolish. "These aren't much, but they're perfect." She smiled, and something in his chest loosened. "Sit." Ethan sat beside her, careful not to jostle her injured arm. For a moment, neither spoke. Then words tumbled out of him like a dam breaking. "I've been thinking about what my father would say if he could see me now. Before he died, he used to tell me that the measure of a man isn't what he builds, but who he builds it for. I built an empire, Amara, but I'd forgotten the for who part. Until you. Ethan, please, let me finish." He took her good hand in both of his. "When I got that call about your accident, I couldn't breathe. The thought of losing you, of never having told you how I feel. It terrified me more than losing my company, my reputation, everything. Because none of it means anything without you." Amara's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Your world doesn't want me. The articles, the whispers, your ex-fiancé. I don't care about my world if you're not in it." Ethan interrupted, his voice fierce. "I love you, Amara. I love your strength, your integrity, how you challenge me to be better. I love that you see me. Not my bank account or my last name, but me, the real me. I love you too," she whispered, tears finally spilling over. "I've been so scared of admitting it because loving you means facing all those obstacles. But watching you show up, at the hospital, here, every time I've needed you, I can't deny it anymore." Ethan leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met softly, tentatively, like a question and answer all at once. When they finally separated, both were smiling through tears. "So what now?" Amara asked. "Now, we face everything together, starting with showing my world that you're not going anywhere." The backlash started the moment Ethan posted a photo on his official Instagram. Him and Amara at a charity gala, her in a simple but elegant dress, his arm around her waist. The caption read, "This is Amara Johnson. She saved my life and changed it. Anyone who has a problem with that can deal with me directly." Within hours, the post had 1 million likes and 50,000 hateful comments. At socialite scene, "How long until he realizes this mistake? Taking bets now." At Business Insider, Ethan Carter's romance raises questions about judgment and company direction. At Dallas Elite, "She cleans up nice, but you can't buy class. This will end badly." But for every hateful comment, 3 supportive ones appeared. At Working Class Hero, "Finally, a billionaire who doesn't just date models and heiresses. This is real." At Love Wins 2024, "They're beautiful together. Anyone hating is just jealous." At Construction Pride, "Shout out to all the hardworking women out there. We see you, Amara." Woman construction worker flexed biceps. At the actual gala, Amara felt every eye in the room tracking her movements. Women in designer gowns whispered behind champagne flutes. Men in expensive tuxedos evaluated her like a curiosity. "Breathe," Ethan whispered in her ear. "You belong here as much as anyone." "Do I though?" Amara gestured to her dress, bought off the rack, not custom-made like everyone else's. "I can feel them judging." Let them judge. I chose you. That's all that matters. But it wasn't quite that simple. When Sarah Mitchell approached with 2 other socialites, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ethan, how lovely to see you. Sarah's smile was knife-sharp. And this must be your friend. Amara Johnson, my girlfriend? Ethan corrected firmly, his hand tightening protectively around Amara's waist. How refreshing. One of Sarah's companions said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. Most people spend years learning how to navigate these events. You must be a very quick study. Amara felt her temper rising but forced herself to smile politely. Actually, I'm still learning. Though I find that basic kindness and respect work in any room, whether it's a construction site or a ballroom. Some people master that quickly. Others never do. The pointed comment landed like a slap. Sarah's smile faltered, and her companions shifted uncomfortably. Ethan suppressed a proud grin. If you'll excuse us, he said smoothly, guiding Amara away. We have actual friends to see. As they walked away, Amara whispered, did I just make enemies for life? Probably, Ethan replied cheerfully. But you also just became my hero all over again. 2 weeks later, Ethan announced a new initiative, the Carter Community Building Project, a partnership between his company and local workers to construct affordable housing in underserved Dallas neighborhoods. And he named Amara Johnson as co-director. The first planning meeting brought together Ethan's corporate team and Amara's construction crew. 2 worlds colliding around a conference table. The budget allows for 50 units in Phase 1. Miranda Chun, the CFO, explained. Standard materials, basic finishes. No, Amara interrupted, studying the blueprints. If we're building homes for families, we build them right. Energy-efficient windows, proper insulation, quality fixtures. These people deserve better than basic. That would exceed our projected budget, Miranda countered. Then we adjust the budget, Ethan said firmly. Amara's right. This project is about dignity, not just meeting minimum requirements. Over the following weeks, they worked side by side, Ethan handling financing and permits while Amara managed the actual construction. Their partnership was seamless, each respecting the other's expertise. One afternoon, Ethan found Amara on site, teaching a group of young apprentices proper welding techniques. Her cast had come off the week before, and she moved with her usual confidence and grace. You're a natural teacher, he observed, watching her patiently correct a young man's angle. Someone taught me once. Now I'm paying it forward. She smiled at him. Besides this project, what we're building here, it's bigger than us. These homes will shelter families, create community. This is legacy work. Our legacy, Ethan corrected, pulling her close despite the workers around them whistling and catcalling good-naturedly. Everything I build from now on, I build with you. Marcus, working nearby, called out, Boss man's getting soft. Next thing you know, he'll be joining the crew full-time. Don't tempt me. Ethan shot back, grinning. I've gotten pretty good with that pneumatic drill. Pretty good for a billionaire, Tommy the welder corrected. Which means terrible for everyone else. Laughter rippled across the site. Standing there, surrounded by workers who'd become friends, building something meaningful with the woman he loved, Ethan realized he'd finally found what he'd been searching for all along. Not success, not wealth, not empire, purpose, partnership, home. 6 months after breaking ground, the Carter Community Building Project held its ribbon-cutting ceremony. 50 families stood before their new homes, quality construction, energy efficient, built with dignity and care. Local news cameras captured every moment. Mayor Rodriguez stepped to the podium first. This project represents what's possible when vision meets compassion, when wealth meets work ethic. Ethan Carter and Amara Johnson have shown us that true leadership serves the community. When Amara took the microphone, her hands trembled slightly. Public speaking still wasn't her comfort zone, but Ethan squeezed her hand encouragingly from beside her. 6 months ago, I was just a construction worker doing my job. Today, I stand here as co-director of a project that's changed 50 families' lives. and changed mine too. This project succeeded because we didn't just build houses. We built hope. We built community. And we proved that when different worlds work together, incredible things happen. The applause was thunderous. In the crowd, Amara spotted her brothers cheering loudly, Keisha wiping away tears, and her entire construction crew wearing matching t-shirts that read, Team Amara. But the real surprise came when Richard Blackwood approached after the ceremony, his expression unreadable. Ms. Johnson, Mr. Carter. He nodded formally. I owe you both an apology. I fought this project, questioned your judgment, and... He paused, clearly uncomfortable with humility. I was wrong. The media coverage alone has boosted our company image more than any PR campaign could. But more importantly, you've reminded this old cynic what ethical business looks like. Ethan extended his hand. Does this mean you'll support the expansion to Phase 2? Blackwood shook it firmly. I'll do better than support it. I'm personally investing $3 million. And I expect Ms. Johnson to maintain the same uncompromising standards. After he walked away, Amara turned to Ethan in shock. Did that really just happen? Your integrity is contagious, Ethan replied, pride evident in his voice. People see what we've built. Not just the houses, but the partnership, the respect, the love. It's changing minds. That evening, Ethan's mother hosted a dinner, her first official acknowledgement of their relationship. As they arrived at her estate, Amara felt her old nervousness returning. She's going to hate me, Amara whispered. She's going to love you, Ethan assured her. Just like I do. His mother greeted them at the door, elegant and imposing. But when she looked at Amara, her expression softened. You saved my son's life, she said simply. Then you saved his soul. Welcome to our family, Amara. 2 months later, Amara's modest backyard was transformed for an engagement party that bridged both their worlds. Construction workers mingled with corporate executives. Amara's brothers played basketball with Ethan's college friends. Tommy the welder was teaching Miranda Chun how to operate a drill, much to everyone's amusement. I cannot believe this is happening, Keisha said, adjusting Amara's engagement ring to catch the light. Girl, you're marrying a billionaire.
I'm marrying Ethan, Amara corrected.
The billionaire part is just logistics. Expensive logistics, Jordan interjected, balancing 3 plates of food. Have you seen the catering? Marcus and I are going to eat our weight in shrimp. That's the plan, Ethan said, appearing with drinks. Eat, celebrate, enjoy. This party is for everyone who supported us through the chaos. Marcus raised his beer. Speech, speech. Groans and laughter filled the yard. But Ethan climbed onto a chair anyway, pulling Amara up beside him. Amara taught me that real strength isn't about money or power. It's about integrity, courage, and showing up for the people you love, even when the whole world is watching and judging. She challenged everything I thought I knew about success and showed me what actually matters. Amara took the improvised microphone, someone's phone. And Ethan taught me that taking risks on love is just as important as taking risks at work. That vulnerability isn't weakness. That 2 different worlds can create something beautiful when both sides are willing to listen, learn, and grow. So thank you, they said in unison, then laughed. Thank you for being here, for supporting us, and for proving that love really does overcome obstacles, if you're brave enough to fight for it. Cheers erupted across the yard. Tommy started a chant of kiss, quiche, kiss, that everyone joined. Ethan and Amara obliged, kissing while their combined worlds celebrated around them. Later, as the party wound down, Sarah Mitchell appeared at the gate. Uninvited but not unwelcome. She approached Amara hesitantly. I owe you an apology, Sarah said quietly. I was jealous, petty, and I helped spread those rumors. You didn't deserve that. Amara studied her for a moment, then extended her hand. Thank you for saying that. It takes courage to apologize. You're better for him than I ever was, Sarah admitted, shaking her hand. He's happy now. Really happy. I can see it. As Sarah left, Ethan wrapped his arms around Amara from behind. You didn't have to be kind to her. Yes, I did, Amara replied. Because that's who we are. We build bridges, not walls. 1 year after the accident, Ethan and Amara stood on the completed Riverside construction site, the same place where their story began. The building was finished, gleaming in the sunset, a testament to safety protocols and worker dignity. Hard to believe it all started here, Amara said, looking up at the high rise. One accident, one rescue, and everything changed. Best accident of my life, Ethan replied, pulling her close. Though I wouldn't recommend it as a dating strategy. Amara laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. What's next for us? More community projects. Expanding the business. All of that, Ethan confirmed. But also moments like this. Building our life together one day at a time. Corporate meetings and construction sites. Boardrooms and backyards. Your world and mine, merged into ours. Our world, Amara repeated, liking the sound of it. I can work with that. As the sun set over Dallas, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they stood together at the construction site. No longer a billionaire and a construction worker, but partners in every sense of the word. They'd faced judgment, overcome obstacles, and proved that love doesn't recognize class barriers when it's built on mutual respect, shared values, and unwavering support. Their journey hadn't been easy, but the best things never are. And as they looked toward the future, filled with projects to build, lives to change, and love to share, they knew one thing with absolute certainty. Together, they could build anything. Thank you so much for joining us on Ethan and Amara's incredible journey. Their story reminds us that true love sees beyond wealth and status. It recognizes courage, integrity, and the willingness to fight for what matters. What did you think of their story? Have you ever had to bridge two different worlds in your own relationships? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear a message of hope today. And don't forget to subscribe to Story by TJ and hit that notification bell so you never miss our upcoming stories about real people facing extraordinary choices. Remember, love doesn't ask where you come from. It only asks if you're willing to show up, be vulnerable, and build something beautiful together. Until next time, keep believing in the power of love, courage, and second chances. This is Story by TJ, and we'll see you in the next story.